Old Mutual is seeing some opportunities for South Africa despite the somewhat bleak outlook for global economic growth and inflation. Chief economist Johan Els says slow economic growth and delayed rate cuts in the US are likely to weaken the dollar, but he anticipates trade outside the US to continue driven by consumer demand.
Outside of the US, free trade will continue, abundantly so. So I'm very much of the view that consumers and eventually voters will dictate what will happen in terms of trade issues. Consumers will demand cheap imports of consumer goods, and eventually we'll see a settling back to free trade, including the US, post the Trump era. And so globalization is alive and well.
Domestically, the focus was the GNU, which political analyst Prince Mashele described as a grouping of political enemies pulling in different directions. Mashele emphasized, however, that South Africa is not a failed state, pointing to the peaceful transfer of power after elections, unlike nations like Zimbabwe, Turkey or Russia as examples. But he suggests that individual deployees of ANC have intensified looting as they sense the party's gradual decline and inevitable exit.
So the whole saga of working with criminals is about politicians of the ANC working with criminals to steal money from the state. So that is the bigger picture.
Mashele says that for the GNU to function effectively, there must first be an agreement on its policy framework and a president who can rise above party interests.
So here the problem is that we have a president who takes sides. He is not interested in making sure that this government works. He does not even convene a meeting where they would hammer out a policy platform for the government.
The expectation going forward is that the coalition government will continue to limp but not break apart. Meanwhile, Business Leadership South Africa CEO Busisiwe Mavuso weighed in on the G20 in South Africa, saying the country must use the opportunity to showcase its investment readiness.
We need to establish in the minds of the world that South Africa is a jurisdiction that matters. We need in the minds of the world that South Africa is a market that has a lot to offer. We need to be able to establish in the minds of the world that South Africa is a country that is heading in the right direction. So that is why I'm very encouraged.
The update also raised concerns about youth unemployment. Old Mutual warned that delayed entry into the job market could increase reliance on the state, as many young people may struggle to build up adequate retirement savings. The group says it will also continue to monitor the gambling explosion, which could cause harm to the economy at a later stage if the addiction scourge is not managed. Nosipho Khatebe, SABC News, Johannesburg.